Hey everyone, welcome to Rebloom, the podcast where we explore the power of change, rediscovery, and living with intention.
That's right. We're your hosts, Lori and Jamie, two friends who really love a good story about transformation.
In each podcast, we're going to chat with inspiring guests who've made bold pivots in their lives or careers. They've let go of what no longer served them to embrace something more authentic, joyful, and true to who they really are.
And the best part, many of them reconnect with passions or dreams they discovered as kids. It's about finding the seeds planted long ago and letting them bloom again.
So if you're ready for real conversations about reinvention, purpose, and following your creative heart, you're in the right place.
Let's dive in and see what it takes to rebloom.
Our listeners are in for the biggest treat today. This is a motivating conversation, an authentic conversation, and one that I can't believe it's taken us this many episodes to get to our beautiful friend Dionne. Oh my gosh, Laura, this was amazing.
Yeah, and what I really loved, because I've known Dionne, but I've not really known Dionne.
Yeah.
And in this conversation, I think we got to learn a lot more about her and her struggles and how those struggles led to some things that were far more beautiful and turning things around, like, you know, one day being shy and scared and fearful. And now she's like doing
Lighting it up.
workshops
Yeah.
and leading
Yeah.
women. And you know, she really shows us the possibilities of how you can transform yourself if you just face your fears.
If you face your fears and you just take that step forward. So for our listeners, this is one you do not want to miss. Thank you. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Rebloom. This is going to be a wonderful conversation among friends. Hi, Lori. How are you?
Hey, Jamie. We get to talk to our really good friend today. So I'm very excited.
We're talking with our friend Dionne Woods, who we have known for several years now. And she is just a light of inspiration. And we cannot wait for you all to meet her. And let us just welcome her. Hello, Dionne. How are you?
I am better now than I was just a few minutes ago because I get to see your lovely faces. Thanks for having me on today, ladies.
And you can't see her, but she always looks like a beautiful movie star, like always.
She does. She looks like a rock star right now. She does. Well, let me tell everybody just a little bit about Dionne, but I want her to tell us her story. But she is the creative force behind this beautiful magazine called the Turquoise Iris. She is a passionate motivatarian, which I love, and she really helps to inspire other creatives through creativity, connection, confidence, and curiosity. She's an artist, she's a mentor, she's a community builder. She started out by painting furniture, and she's flourished into canvases, wearable pieces, heirloom journals, and she even has a luxurious collection of velvet fabrics that are infused with her beautiful style of storytelling and vibrant energy. I'm going to let her tell her more of her story, but Dionne, thank you for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So, just to jump on that. Thank you for saying all of that. It almost sometimes makes me tired.
Oh, I know. Watching while you do makes me tired. Yeah. You're a dynamo.
I just, I feel like, you know, the scariest thing I ever did other than become a mom is start the Turquoise Iris. And the reason I have a name like that, and it's not just Dionne Woods, is because when I first started my Etsy store in 2010, you had to give it kind of a name. And I was just following suit with like Miss Mustard Seed. And, you know, people in the industry who were working on furniture, they had like this other name. So I took a name I knew that would be incredibly inspirational with my grandmother and my mother's middle name. that's Iris, and combined that with turquoise and put this together for the turquoise iris, because turquoise is like the color that makes my heart skip a beat to this day.
Yours and mine, and Lori's too.
Yeah,
We
love it.
absolutely.
Ocean, isn't it? It's just like the fluidity of the ocean and the movement of water and the energy that's involved in that. So, from starting with my furniture, and what I was doing, which going full circle, when I first started my Etsy store, I was finding things like silver trays and things that I just thought would be kind of a cool piece of decor, and I would flip it, put it on Etsy, and mark it up 4 times. But the one time I did a piece of furniture, and I priced one high ticket item, and it sold to a lady in Louisiana, and I'm in Oklahoma City, that was actually the instigator. I want to say it was because I've always known I was an artist, but it's not true. I have not known I'm an artist. That thing that sold, and then I had the struggle of figuring out, how do I ship a piece of furniture across the country? Is that even doable in 2011, 12? And I ruined that piece of furniture by spray painting it. And I kept shipping and went through the process of putting antiques on trucks and figuring out how to do that. And I even used the bus, like your Greyhound bus, for 3
Oh my gosh.
I loaded furniture in my car, drove it to the bus station when they were in between buses, so it wouldn't be, as dangerous, I should say, and loaded pieces of furniture on the cargo underneath the bus just so my customers could pay lower shipping.
Oh
And
my gosh.
I
Wow.
mean, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. If you want to do something, you just figure out a way.
Okay, so this is my part normally on the podcast because I'm fascinated by this. Jamie knows what I'm going to ask.
I do. I do.
I am always curious about your childhood and what you were like as a kid, and were there seeds that led you towards initially painting furniture, or even was there something before that? I don't know your story prior to your furniture painting business, and so I'm curious to learn about that.
Sure, absolutely. I've lived in Oklahoma City my entire life. It's a big city, but my high school is just down the road. So my parents, my mom and dad divorced when I was 5, and between the 10 years they were married, they lived in 7 homes.
Oh
So
boy.
you want to talk about the original flippers, like DIYers, that was my mom and dad. So we were on the news, or not on the news, but on the cover of the Daily Oklahoman for having flipped homes, because like they first one was $11,000. They flipped it for 20, like they started doing that. And I'll tell another story about fast forwarding to when Matt and I bought our first home, when those 2 hooligans went up the attic and found an antique piece of furniture. But anyway, that was it. I have an older brother who is the dad dork on social media, and he's just taken off in the last few years telling jokes in his doorbell, because he had a sense of humor. He has a sense of humor he got from my dad. So I was an athlete, ladies. I did not do art. The thing I wanted to do was to go shoot hoops on my driveway. I played soccer. I
Oh
ran.
my God, this shocks me.
I knew none of this. None of this.
Yeah.
None.
Well, so I mean, that was my thing. It was when I was in 6th grade, it was the most important thing to me, ladies, to 1, be the Masonic Award winner, but 2, be the fastest girl in the school. And like, I was so competitive and so driven by Super Kids Day, when we had like the outdoor athletics where you had a partner and all the things. So what drove me was to be my brother's buddy, and to wrestle, and to be the fastest. And I learned that competition drove me, and I had to have the highest scores, the highest grades. Like, I think I'm a 3 on the Enneagram, if you haven't noticed. So growing up, let me tell you, the first thing I remember putting together, we had no money. There wasn't crowns at home. There wasn't paint supplies. I didn't have anything like that. Um, but I did have a best friend whose mom painted on canvas. And
Oh,
so we moved in next to her when I was 7. And every once in a while in the summertime, I would go through the front door and I'd be walking to Jessica's bedroom and I'd look over and I would see JJ painting. And I'm like, what is this? What is this thing? And I would sit down. I would never go find Jessica. I'm like, if I sit real quiet, can I just watch you?
Oh,
I never had supplies though. So it wasn't like I got to do that. But somehow, about the time Hobby Lobby started dollhouse kits, Lori, you asked this question because when I saw dollhouse kits, it was like I could build a tiny little house and decorate it. And so my mom, even though we didn't have very much money, she always made sure that we had framed prints, and she would use her last dollar to make sure that she had a professional framed artwork on our wall. And she painted the walls, and she knew how to do all of these DIY things that a lot of my friends didn't know how to do. So I just took that dollhouse, used all my allowance, and I would put it all together. I would use the house paint or like the paint my mom had been using, and I would take toothpicks and I would cut out magazines and I would frame them and glue it to the wall. And I had little scraps of fabric and I would make carpet and I would glue wallpaper. So it wasn't because I played with things, because I didn't really play with toys. It was more of like instantly grown up. How do you grow up fast enough? But dollhouses was the first time I created. Still didn't think of myself as an artist. Really didn't identify. Like I'm 49 next week, and I really never considered myself an artist until I was 38, 39, probably.
oh, wow.
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. So
So
I'm assuming it was, high school, getting married, kids. Was there a point in time that you went, I need to be, when did the I need to be creative bug hit you? When did it really come to you and you said, I need to answer this call?
I know exactly when it was. I was 20 years old and I was managing a customer service department
Hmm.
for the Auto Trader magazine. Do you remember those?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Oklahoma City department, I got a job there 18 years old as a proofreader. What a drag. But it paid $9 an hour. Okay. So that was big time. And so while I was there for the 2.5 years, I got promoted over my supervisor to the actual manager of the entire department. So at that
Wow.
age, I was also the youngest person. And what was happening inside of me, even though I knew every avenue to every department and they put me in front to talk to customers, I was dying inside. First off, they
Yeah.
said, you're going to have to wear khakis with a collared shirt. And I was like,
Yeah.
he's
If
out of here.
Yeah, you got to see Dionne's color choices. There is,
Yeah.
she does not own khaki.
No, of course, my partner was like, "Hey, khakis, and I don't have to buy clothes to work." And I'm like, "I live for buying clothes for work. Get out of here."
Yeah.
But what was happening was I was getting more and more smothered in the office. So I went and found a job where I could sell clothes in a very high end. It's called Nichols Hills here in Oklahoma City. High end store, and I got the job. So I wore my mom's suit clothes, her professional clothes, and put on pantyhose and pumps and scarves around my neck. And I was 20 years old, got this job working for a woman named Ruth Myers in Oklahoma City. And this woman was the epitome of what I thought I wanted to be. She had a store. Her dresses, she sold Bill Blass and Donna Karan and just the highest end clothing here in Oklahoma City. So little did I know that every day I sat in that office or in that store, I was picking apart all the old decor and how they should be painting the walls. And we need to move this piece of furniture over here and this over here. Like, ladies, I was just the creative force inside of me was unfolding. And I thought, I can't just stand here waiting on customers when I actually want to move that whole office around and make that work better. Like, I know how that painting should look. And
Oh, wow.
That's so
Back to the
funny.
dollhouse, although
Yeah.
it's full size now.
All I wanted to do was make things pretty. And I knew that I had that knack. I started working with the mannequins. I started styling them. Matt and I got married about that time. And so I quit that job and I started working in another retail store. And she said, Dionne, have out the windows. Get after the decor, move the furniture, paint the walls, do all the things. And I loved that so much. So while we were buying homes, painting them, painting the woodwork, flipping them, laying tile, just, making curtains. I was making balances and curtains and getting out my sewing machine and making pillows. And I was just becoming a homemaker.
Yeah.
I realized of all my friends, I was the only person that had artwork on the walls. And yeah, they were hand-me-downs, or they were very cheap, or I literally made them from magazines and framed them, from garage sale frames, and I would paint the frame. I've just been DIYing my life. And so that's the moment that when I realized inside the Auto Trader magazine office with men in their khakis,
Yeah.
I gotta go.
I can't even imagine you in that environment.
It's funny. When I was out of college, my first job was for a bank. And I remember going to a big bank meeting. And, I'm 20 something years old, 22, 23. And I remember looking around the conference table and there were all these older men and they all looked so miserable. And I'm like, I don't want to be here and look like this, but it's funny when most of the people that we've talked to, Dionne, who have had careers or jobs that are like that. They're accountants or they're business or they're doing trading. And they're like, this is not who I am. I have this creative heart that just needs to be let go, just opened up. And
Jamie, and I love listening to the stories on your podcast. Some of the guests that you have are so inspiring. And I mean, that I stand up in front of people now and I talk, but that job, I would go out from meetings with all these men and I would go and throw up in my car because of my nerves, because they would look at me and say, why aren't your numbers, or why this, or why did you mess up payroll? And I'm like, guys, you put me in a position. I feel like you set me up to fail. Like, these women out there hate me. I'm like, I am struggling. And I don't like this. I knew cars. I caught on really quickly, but I was not going to speak in a meeting with these guys. I was not going to speak up. And I've had to find my voice. And we're talking 29 years ago, going into my car, throwing up, don't give me any attention. I just let me do my job, but don't ask me these questions. And then you're responsible for people's payroll. Oh, ladies.
Yeah.
Let's take a quick minute and thank our amazing sponsors. Our podcast is proudly brought to you today by Jet Creative and Urban Stems. Jet Creative is a women-owned marketing firm committed to community and empowerment since 2013. Are you ready to rebloom and build a website or start a podcast? Visit jetcreative.com/podcast to kickstart your journey. They will help you bloom in ways you never imagined. And bonus, our listeners get an exclusive discount when you mention Rebloom. And a huge thanks to Urban Stems, your go-to and our go-to source for fresh, gorgeous bouquets and gifts delivered coast to coast. Use Bloom Big 20 and save 20% on your next order. And don't forget to subscribe to this podcast and follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Rebloom Podcast. Thanks to our sponsors, and thanks to you for joining us today.
So let's fast forward a little. So you've got the creative bug. It's there. You've planted those seeds there. I can already see them from your mom and dad flipping houses and your creativity. And then you start Etsy and this is when people start, doing the painting and what captured your heart with that? How did that start?
Well, right before that kind of happened, you guys, I was ending up in part-time job after part-time job. And the reason is because you're trying to take care of children and you need a little income. So for
Right.
2.5 years, when I left retail management, I went to a Mother's Day out where the boys were enrolled, and I took the job of the 2-year-olds. So I had 12 2 and 3-year-olds that I potty trained, changed diapers, fed, and went from there to going and picking up my nephews, and I was Aunt Dee's daycare baby. As soon as that was over with, I went and picked up Mason and Evan. I had Connor sometimes, and I had 5 boys going, through Walmart and to the pool at times.
Wow.
I found it within myself that this girl was going to have a children's bookstore because my favorite thing to do was to sit with the boys and read. But there was also something that I loved, and that was where the art came in, because all of a sudden, if I put things out in front of the kids, they started playing and they drawing. We had clubs, we decorated our shirts. And so that whole being an aunt and a mom with little boys who have to stay super active, if I could get them to be still, I would give them crowns and paints, and we would do all of that. And so I took, I don't remember which boy it was, to a friend's house, and I was sitting in her living room, and she had a new baby. And I'm like, I've got to find a way to make more money. There has to be something. I have talent. And she goes, you got to open up an Etsy store. And I was so hooked. That was August 10th of 2010. And I've never forgot that day, because it just went poof. And I started scrolling and looking what other people across the country were doing. And guys, I feel like I was so closed in just this little world right here that was the expansion of my brain into like what was actually possible. So my mom, my dad, anybody I knew that was creative, I immediately just started pulling from, okay, I've painted furniture. My mom let me paint one chest of drawers when I was 12, and she said solid white. That's all you could do. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me, solid white? My room's pink and blue. Like, what?
Yeah.
Sorry, solid white. So once that started taking off, I also took care of my grandmother before she passed for 2.5 years. Luckily got to be with her during that day and that transition. My dad passed away, and I just started looking at life a little bit differently. Like, it's now, babe. Like,
Yeah.
These boys are looking at you, and they are taking on some of these characteristics of being shy and a little intimidated by certain things. And I just thought, it's now or never. I went through a major bout of depression, and were bedridden for a few weeks. And Matt calls it like that black time in my life, where I couldn't even fathom taking care of my children. I wasn't being left alone. And during that point, I realized I was just spread way too thin. And the thing I needed to do was create. And I got really quiet and started praying daily, going outside, looking up to the sky, and just surrendering, like, you've got to help me. I don't know what to do. Loving husband, most beautiful children, not perfect. I had family all around me and friends, and I've never been so lonely in my life.
Thank you for sharing.
How old were you then? Were you like 30s?
37 maybe.
I just asked because I went through something very similar right around that age.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for bravely sharing that, Dionne. Because I think so many of us and so many of our listeners, we have those dark times, and particularly on social media, when you just see all the bright, beautiful colors and the happy, and we think that that's the way that it is all the time, and that we were always like that. But that may be what we do. It's not necessarily who we are. We all have ups and downs. Life is a roller coaster. I've had it, as we've shared, and but to share, thank you for sharing that with our listeners, because it, not only that, you had support, and you found your way out of it through creativity. And that's how I'm finding my way out, is through my creative heart. That's the only thing that I can hold on to right now that is steady. And, oh golly,
Well,
yes.
you know
And
we learn from each other. That's what
yeah,
we do. We learn from each other, and when we share our experiences, then we don't feel alone. And so we had built our dream house, a farmhouse, wraparound porch on 5 acres. We built that, and we had lived there for 4 years, and I am dying inside. Yes, I'm getting to create. I'm out in the garage. I'm making things. I'm selling things. But I am trying to be everything to everyone, and I am not doing well. I am not. And it came to the forefront where we had to deal with it. So we put our house up for sale, and
Oh, wow.
we sold our dream home, and we dealt with that guilt and that pressure, and we found ourselves both self-employed, which we weren't, that neither one of us when we built our dream home. And having a very driven little boy come to us and say, I want to try out for this baseball team, but it means we have to travel on the weekends and we have to spend a lot of money, and I don't know if I should try out. And Matt and I looked at each other and we cried, and we looked at him and said, babe, go for it. We'll figure it out.
yeah,
And so we sold our dream home, and we downsized, and we started from scratch with something we could afford, something we could manage, with a fence, with a small yard that we could mow. So I told that boy who carried his bucket of balls and his bat down the street and walked to the backstop at the school and worked every day to make that baseball team. And he made it, and he made it to the shortstop. And it was like, we will figure this out.
yeah,
But ladies, we didn't know how. I felt like it was all on me because Matt was doing everything he could to be an electrician and run his business. And if he worked more hours, that means he wasn't with us. And that meant that I had 2 little boys going to baseball practice, and I couldn't do it all. And so I felt like it was on me. And that pushed me to say, you've got more here, sis. Like, there's more here. And so I just went to a mentor, a business coach, and said, what can I do? And she said, you've got to do Facebook Lives. And I said, you got the wrong girl, man. I quit 2 jobs. I quit 2 jobs when they said you're going to talk on a microphone. And I said, no, I'm not outspoken. I can't stand up in front of people. I cannot do that. And she says, well, it'll grow your business. She challenged me, and I found myself unfolding right before the screen for people like you that were creative, supportive, encouraging. And I found myself saying, well, I told them I'd be back today, so I have to show back up and show them how I'm doing this. So I feel like if God gave me talent, it's to share. And so I just, every single day, I just kept showing up. My sales started increasing. My confidence that I'd never had started revealing itself. And I started to identify myself as an actual artist. And
yeah. Because that is so huge for our listeners too, because I think everybody also feels, I can't put myself out there unless I'm perfect and it all looks good and it's all da-da-da.
no,
You just have to start. We started this podcast. We think back and we had no idea what we were doing. And let us all give everyone a little background. The reason we started this podcast is because of our dear friend Dionne, who said, keep moving, you two, keep moving. This is a great idea. So I called my friend Lori and said, we're doing a podcast, because she was on vacation. I think that's but to your point though, Dionne, and it's so important. it's those micro challenges. When I got on Instagram, I didn't want to be on Instagram. I said, all right, let me just show up for a day. Let me show up for a month. Let me show up for a year. And then you realize that there's a community out there. You also realize that there's a supportive community out there, particularly if you're putting something creative and joyful out there. There are more people who are going to give you love than are going to give you hate. There are haters, but not as I truly, truly believe that it is the most wonderful connector if it is used in a positive way. And yeah, golly. And so Facebook and painting and your business is growing. And, the other thing too, is it's being proud of the fact that you recognized you needed to pivot in your personal life and downsize. So many people don't. And they're like, no, we have to have the big house and we have to have this. And that extra stress is just, that'll eat you up. And
it will smother your creativity, which is what it was like, ladies. What I was describing to you was me realizing that I was smothered. I could not get up for breath. And so when we moved and downsized it was like a fresh start. We could breathe again. And I had all this extra space and time to create. And what started happening, and granted, you said like, you just do it. My car was behind me and I had a 9x9 square that I worked for. I worked in it for 7 years in my garage, and I did all the lives. I did all the painting. I had all of that. I interviewed people. I started teaching. I had guests on. I had guests in my space. And Matt made this little 9x9 square in our garage, a little fake wall. And I made it work. The boys would be there in the summer. There'd be 4 boys running back and forth behind me, inside, out to the pool. I mean, like, it was crazy town. The guy next to me would be mowing, and I'm like, ain't stopping me. I got stuff to do and bills to pay, baby.
Yeah.
And so when I reached the point where chalk paint companies started reaching out to me because they'd seen photos of my work on Pinterest. And Jennifer Allwood reached out to me and said, you're my Etsy expert. Come on and do this webinar with me. And I'm like, you got 100,000 followers. I'm not talking to you. Okay. Like, I'm terrified of you because you have 100,000 followers. And she's like, come on, you can do this. So through all the mess and the yuck and the I'm just figuring this out. And I started spraying, what really set my furniture apart as far as what made me unique. And that's what I did, ladies. I really did lean into the fact that I was using 8 colors on a piece of furniture while everybody else was using 1 or 2. And I started spraying water on my furniture to let it blend and started turning it into my canvas, not realizing what I was doing. I needed to enjoy what I was painting. I couldn't do one color. What is this, white color?
No white furniture.
No white furniture. No.
It doesn't make any sense to me. And so I started growing. And the first month that I remember my goal was to make $2,000 a month. And then my goal was to make $4,000 a month. And I sold my first tutorial. It was 13 minutes. For $13, and Etsy let me load like a how-to type of thing, and I launched that thing. We went on vacation. We drove to Galveston, Texas, and I had rented a beach house, and I sold so many of those $13 tutorials that I paid for our trip that week.
Wow!
To Galveston.
Wow!
I could not believe this was actually happening, that people were buying from me. Chalk paint companies were sending me paint and saying, will you just try it and just like do a blog or like post about it? And so I had cabinets full of paint from different companies. And my one now very dear friend, Debbie Beard with DIY Paint, which is all I still use 8 years later, she said, can I send you some paint? And I said, no, thanks. I've got plenty. Like, I'm not going to just take it because it's free. And she's like, okay, let me give it another month. She sends me another message. Will you please send me some? She says, this is clay. This is clean paint. There are no toxins. You can put this on your hands. It can be around babies. It's literally 9 ingredients. And I'm like, well, this kind of falls in alignment with my, we
Yeah.
had switched
Right.
all of our home, like everything was going clean in this girl's house. And so I was like, well, this kind of helps. And that also means I might not have to go out to the garage if the paint smell doesn't bother my family.
Yeah.
So I tried it and I've never looked back. I built this relationship with Debbie, the owner. You check in with your value system. And again, she says, can you fly to Delaware and paint for 8 ladies at my boot camp? And I said, no, I don't fly by myself. Never done that. I was 40, ladies. I was 40. I've never flown alone. I've never even booked a flight by myself. And I've never taught in front of people, so it's just not going to happen. She gets her partner in crime to call me. They're both on speaker telling me, we need you, Dionne. We need you. And those two little tricksters tricked me. And so through my tears, I said, okay, I'll come to Delaware and I'll teach. This was just 8 years ago. And
Wow.
I flew and I cried through a little bit of that furniture makeover, and 8 group came in, and then the next group of 8, and then the next group of 8. And I got out of that airport. I flew home by myself, and my mom had to pick me up because Holden was at the ballpark. And I looked at my mom, and she was in utter shock that I actually went through with this. And I said, Mom, I did it. And she goes, you did it. And we're celebrating at age 64 and 40. We're celebrating that my independence was finally starting to show.
Yeah.
And that I was coming into my own, and people were looking for me for guidance. And I guess it just took off, and I started having monthly workshops in person at a local place. And I found out, looking back, ladies, that painting was just the vehicle to my connections with other creative women. And
Yes.
I have empathy and compassion, and I have this drive inside of me that says, you are amazing, but there's so much more, and we're going to find it together. And I'm going to hold your hand as we walk through this together, because if I can, you can. And I've always told people, if I can do this, you can do this, because I am the least likely person to be doing what I'm doing right now. Really.
It's so beautiful to hear your story. And I think the fact that you are doing what you're doing now, it's because you're sharing your authenticity, and the fact that you were this shy person that said no to so many things and finally were forced to say yes, or wrangled to say yes on some. And I think, when you do face fears, and you'll be terrified at first. And I've felt this too. Whenever I was really, really scared and I said yes, and I still was terrified, but I did it anyway. On the other side, that is what builds confidence. And then you're ready for the next yes. And the next yes might be even a little bit bigger. And so if you constantly say no and stay in a shell, and you're afraid of what people think of you, or you're afraid of whatever it is that's stopping you. I mean, we have one life on this planet. So
let's make it a good one.
Why not just go for it and do it and become ourselves?
Yeah. That's so true. I sat with women in person and said, put your hands out like this, right out in front of you, your palms open. Who is holding this power? Are you giving it to all the people you worry about, thinking they think this about you, they think this about you? Are you giving them the power for your future? Or are you taking that and doing something with it? Because we are not promised tomorrow. And so I literally try to envision this power of, like, I have the opportunity to do the scary thing. And every single time, Lori, you're so right. Every single time you do it, it's like, I did not die.
Yeah.
You made it. You made it through.
I want more of that. And so even to this point where I make a decision about something, if I'm nervous about it, but it still feels rewarding, I keep doing it until I'm no longer nervous about it. And I would stand up in front of people and I would be sweaty And I would stand on the mic and say, okay, I'm going to try to make something pretty for you. I'm going to stand here and I'm just going to sweat. And the reason I'm breathy is because I can't catch my breath. But I just want you to know I'm so glad you came all this way. That was the thing. When people started flying across the country, I would think, what in the heck? Like, why are they doing this for me? Like, and it's not for me, it was for them. But then you feel like you have a responsibility to show up and you think, it doesn't matter if you're nervous, sister. This isn't about you.
Yeah.
You're not doing this for you. It's always about the people. It's always about, they need to learn something. And if you are the person, you better make sure you do it, whether you are sweaty or scared to death or go throw up in the bathroom, but get on with it. Because
well, they want you to share your gifts, and the gift could be just you. I mean, you have the most beautiful, beautiful gifts to share with everyone. And
thank you.
I was just going to talk about, before we press record, you were sharing about the past year. And I kind of wanted to touch upon, like, when things don't always go the way we plan. You know, we've talked a lot about how, you know, things flourished and things were great, but you had shared that a couple things in the last year or so didn't maybe pan out the way you thought they were. But can you talk about that? Because what you were sharing was so beautiful and we didn't push record. So we have to talk about it again.
Yeah, we said, stop talking. You have to tell this story.
Well, thank you for letting me share a little bit about my last year. And hopefully there is something that will resonate with some of your listeners. So because, you know, we get to talk on a regular basis, right? Like in our little meetings and stuff. But we've had the honor of just kind of keeping in touch with each other over the last few years. And what I hadn't necessarily had an opportunity to share was that 2024 ended up being one of the hardest years of my business. It was the hardest years financially, whereas every year beforehand, it was going up, 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 up. And that was the first year, kind of into 23, into 24, where financially it just started to like not at all be the same as what it had been. And so the immediate struggle when you enter the year of like, okay, is this going to go up? And how am I going to handle this? Am I a failure? Am I failing at this? And am I failing at this? Well, add into that, my current projects that I was working on, you know, coming into 2024 is doing some filming and working for a media company and gaining tons of connections. And then I started a new brand called Revel and Ravel. And, you know, I've still had my podcast for 5.5 years, and I'm doing different mentoring projects, and everything is what it is. And as 2024 started to go on further and further, it was kind of, I kept hitting roadblocks. Like, well, that didn't look the way I thought it was going to, and that didn't look like the way I thought it was going to do. And so there's a pause there, and then there's a pause there, and then there's a pause there. And what happens emotionally is I woke up one day and went, everything that I was just like throwing all of my energy into got put on pause. What am I going to do with that? So I had to get really quiet, and I had to spend a lot of time just listening to my inner knowing. For me, that was outside next to my pool. Every day I sat out there and just prayed and meditate and thought and got quiet about, what am I supposed to be doing right now? Like, I felt lost, right? I felt absolutely lost. Now, keep in mind, so much of what I was working on was going really well at the same time. My artwork, in my opinion, had never been better. I was learning new techniques. My flow was just going and going, and my skills were growing. My relationships with people that were so important to me was getting stronger, and I was learning more about Dionne. And I finally had time to take my foot off the brake or the gas and coast. I'd never coasted, ladies. We went on to 2010 to 2024. I had not coasted. And so although I felt scared to death, unfamiliar, last year was the absolute best year for my personal growth.
Yeah.
And I have so much peace and so much gratitude that I was able to slow down and to pause, because I was able to give attention to things that I hadn't been able to. And going through the overcoming the doubt of like, was I not good enough? Was this not, where was all of that? And I've ended with something like this. And this is how I started 2024 or 2025. My hands are open. My palms are open. I am not grasping. And the ideas are going to come and they're going to roll right off. They're going to keep going. But when I hold on and I grip it with all of my might, there's a struggle. And so I'm just keep reminding myself in those quiet moments to keep my palm open.
Yeah.
But keep working on what's inside of me. Keep asking for guidance, but also pay very close attention to the things that actually light me up.
Yes.
Who lights me up? What experiences light me up? And what am I doing that light me up? And for me, that has been mindset. You know what? You mentioned the Motivatarian ladies. It was a Friday night in June. And I thought, I love almost more than painting is to motivate other women, to link arms and say, come on, let's go. Let's do this together. So a little chat GPT helped me come up with the word motivatarian, and it described me to a T. And I went, that's it. So knowing that, right. And then knowing that leadership. And so, just today I launched my Wisdom and Wonder Leadership Lab. And I'm going to take 12 women on for the next 12 weeks. And we are going to work on helping them become a better leader. And I wouldn't have developed all of this. I wouldn't have had the time to come up with this if I hadn't have slowed down for the latter part of 2024. Do I want to do this? And do I want to do that? Am I going to do these other things? I absolutely am. But I'm going to do it in a different way. And I'm going to feel differently. And I'm going to look differently inside. And like my worth has reached a level that I just didn't know I'd be here, ladies. I didn't know, I didn't know that I would ever be in this mindset to be able to lead others and actually be the expert. I mean, are we for real? Like, I just have to go, really?
Wow.
Life is so beautiful. Life is just so beautiful through the hardships, learning to stay positive. So that's kind of a little bit about what we talked about.
Well, and you said it so beautifully, but, I think, and the big thing is pausing. And, sometimes we look at pauses as failures.
Mm-hmm.
And also I will say this about myself, and I know this about my dear friend Lori, and I know it about you, Dionne. We're also used to going at 100 miles an hour.
Yes.
And when someone says, hey, you need to slow it down to 35.
Yeah.
You're like, what? What do I do with that? And it's very challenging for me. But that is the message, that you need to just stop and not only pause, but exactly what you did, which is listen. Mm-hmm. Listen to your heart, listen to your head, listen to look around at what's going on, because the world is constantly changing. A pause may have happened because of an outside influence to whatever you're working on, not because of what you were doing.
Yeah.
It may have happened because something that you were doing wasn't the right fit. But for oftentimes when those pauses happen to us, it's like, oh, I failed. I did this. Not necessarily. Maybe it was just time to stop and pivot. And
you're right.
I've had these pauses in my life, which have brought us to you and to everyone today. And Lori, what do you want to
Yeah, well,
share?
I'm always counseling my kids. Like, I remember a time when Kenzie in high school had applied for governor's scholar or something like that, and she didn't get in, and she's, crying on the phone. And I always say, that just means that wasn't meant to be, but there's
Right,
something right around the corner that is meant to be. And I think it's hard. Like, I think of you, Dionne, as that competitive little girl, and
right.
you probably are competing with yourself all
Mhm.
the time,
Mhm.
all the time. And if you don't win, you probably and I'm a little like this too. When you don't win or you think you failed, it can throw you into a tailspin, and you really have to shift your mindset and start thinking, there's maybe a reason for this, and I need to learn something from it. And the good Lord, he knows.
He
So
does.
true. It's
And you never know. I have a project that's sitting out there, and I've had a lot of no's that have happened, and it's a little discouraging. And people are saying, are you pushing forward with it? And I said, no, no. I just trust that if there's a yes, then it will become But if it's not meant to be, I'm just going to let it go. I'm going to let it go, and open my heart to something else. And I do believe other things will fill it up. And we know that. I mean, that's the reason we're doing this show, is because the wisdom of age, the wisdom of Dionne. I cannot believe you're going to be 49 because you look like you're 25.
Oh,
thank you so much. But that's just it.
yeah.
The discovery of I the discovery that since I was able to pause, so much growth happened within me, and I was able to really understand um, that I had to have this experience to be where I am now. And every time I work with a woman who shares a little bit of their hardship or their struggle, I pull from that strength and go, man, if they can, and they did that, and she was able to do that, and what a bad mama jamma. Like, she is
Mhm.
higher. And that gives me so much strength and so much encouragement. And so, yes, everything that you guys just said, it's what I have felt. Um, I learned that nothing has been a failure, but everything has been a lesson. I
Mhm.
It has.
100% understand it now. Did not 10 years ago, but I have lived it. I have learned it, and I am teaching that. And that is the worth and the empowerment that comes from opening up all this extra space because of all the goodness that is coming. And I know it's coming. Like,
A-
there's open spaces here, right? To
Mhm.
let things
a-
go so there's more space.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And thank God you let that fear, you kind of pushed that fear down, because you are an incredible teacher and an incredible motivator. And on that note, I want to toss it over to Lori, because Dionne, Lori, and I are going to be together this year for something really, really cool. And if anybody wants to meet Dionne and be just turned on by her energy and her love and her creativity, we have an opportunity. So go ahead, Laura.
Yes, we do. So my partners, Kara Fox and Colleen Sutton, the three of us have been working well over a year to create a conference for women called Live Courageously Rebloom. Love that word.
We do.
We have 11 presenters, all women and all inspiring, incredibly supportive women that I've met along the way. Jamie and Dionne are part of the cast of speakers. And we are creating this because we really just want to encourage women to live their best life, whatever that looks like. So, some people have thought that this is an art retreat because I teach a lot of those. It really is not that, although I will be doing a creative session, and so will my friend Pam Kravitz, who's amazing. But the creative sessions are for any skill level, and they're really the projects are really meant to tie into the themes of all of the presentations at the conference. So we're going to have an opening party and beautiful meals together and a closing party with a DJ. And Glitter Express is going to do makeup for the party for whoever wants it. And it's going to be joyous and wonderful. And the women who have signed up already, a lot of them I know and they're friends. They're amazing women, the attendees. So it's just going to be an amazing experience to network and inspire each other and support each other. And it's May 5th to the 8th at Richwood on the River, which is a magical venue. Both of you have been there, seen it. It's
amazing.
It's pretty special. A lot of people maybe don't know this area. It's right near a little town called Madison, Indiana, which Dionne has hosted a couple of retreats there. And sometimes you go, Madison, Indiana, what? You go there, and let me tell you,
you never want to leave.
Going back. Every time I drive down there, I just am so happy. It's like a little gem of a town. It's like a Hallmark town.
Yes, it is.
The energy there is amazing. So you can stay in Madison, and then we'll have shuttles to shuttle people over to Richwood for the event.
Yeah, quite amazing. I'm so excited about this creative celebration. Anytime we can have women like this. So thank you for doing this, Lori. Like, thank you for you and Kara and Colleen for putting all of this together. Your network is extensive, and the fact that you're bringing all of these incredible speakers together and just all on the same, I can't even imagine the creative energy. So I'm counting down the days, really.
I know. I can't wait.
And I hope, those that are listening, sometimes you're like, hey, should I do this? Shouldn't I do this? I can honestly tell you, when I've invested in myself or invested in a retreat, and maybe it seems like a lot, but that investment, you will get back for years upon years in friendships and in knowledge, and you will take away so much from just a few days. I attended a retreat 10 years ago. I'm still friends with the people it was 3 days, but my entire photography career started because of those 3 days. And I've had an entire life because of it. Because of those 3 simple days. And so It's huge.
Absolutely.
Well, Dionne, we ask our guests, we kind of jumped in there with our advertisement for this amazing retreat. And I do hope people will come, and we will have the information for this in the bio and everything. But we do ask we ask our guests to leave our listeners with a quote or a tip or something that you sort of hold in your heart that you go to when you need inspiration. Would you like to share?
Sure, I will. I have one, and then I also have a very short scripture, if I can share two.
Please.
Because one, I think the creative, your viewers will completely resonate with this one. But we do this, and I need this reminder, so someone else might also. And the author is unknown, but it's, don't shrink who you are just to fit in spaces too small for your destiny.
Ooh,
and I have to remind myself not to shrink.
Yeah.
Because I want to be liked. Right.
Ooh.
So that's one of them. And then when I wake up every day, it's something that goes on throughout my mind. It's just the simple scripture of the joy of the Lord is your strength. And that's one that
beautiful.
I've been saying since, I worked at Auto Trader. That was a gift they gave me with the clock, and it had that monogram. I learned that, and I had no idea how many times I would say that throughout my lifetime. But the joy of the Lord is your strength. Yes.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you.
Ladies, thank you. Y'all are amazing. You guys, thank you for just taking the time and going forward. And like you said, you chose to do this, even though you guys didn't really know how to do it, but you
And we
connected
were
to
terrified.
But you were the wind beneath our wings. You were the like, just go
Exactly.
do it. And there was fear on both of our sides, and certainly I was going through some really serious family issues at the time too. But this has been the biggest gift to myself, and just to meet other people and to be with Lori and to have that support of friendship and love and talk to everyone and realize that we've all had we've all had stuff, but finding that creative path, or finding the path that really fills our heart, is where we need to go.
Well, I also feel like when you're struggling, sad, if you can find a way to be in service of other people in any way, I think that's a really good way to pull yourself out of that. I guess I've been learning that more and more in this part of my life and my journey, like giving back, supporting people, being in service. It fills your heart in a way that all the competitive stuff does not.
Yeah. Whether we call it teaching or sharing, I think we all have something to teach and share. And just that little bit is just the greatest gift to someone else. And it usually gives back to you in the most beautiful ways.
Agreed.
Well, thank you, dear friend. And to our listeners, peace, love, and rebloom. Life is too short not to follow your passions, so go out there and let your heart plant you where you are meant to be and grow your joy.
We will be right here sharing more incredible stories of reinvention with you. Make sure to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode of Rebloom.
Until next time, I'm Jamie Jameson.
And I'm Lori Siebert.
Peace, love, and rebloom, dear friends.